So I think one of the neatest things, for as many problems as social media can have, one of the neatest things is the memories thing on Facebook, where it's like a year ago today, 5 years ago today, 10 years ago today, 11 years ago. I've had Facebook for like 11 years. It's crazy. But we're at the point where it's just over a year since my newest nephew was born. So I've been enjoying seeing the year ago today memories of the pictures of my nephew from when he was first born. And one of my favorite pictures is this picture of Xander where he's got his fists just clenched super tightly, and he's got this look like it's literally like the oldest man grump face. That, I mean, it's just full on old man grump. And when I saw that picture, I texted my family and I was like, this is like perfect for a meme. So I don't know if you all are familiar with memes, but you have pictures that people then take out of their original context and put words around to just make something new out of the picture that you have. And it's perfect with him just looking grumpy. So the first one I sent was when you find out your Uncle Josh can't come to meet you until after Easter. And then Will, my brother-in-law, Xander's dad, went to UTA, University of Texas at Arlington, while both of my sisters, myself, and my other brother-in-law, Kevin, all went to TCU. So we're a frog family other than Will. Will sticks out. And so the next one I sent was when your dad puts you in UTA gear, but you're a frog for life. You know, one meme that I've been thinking about is an image of a number on the ground. And depending on which way you're looking at it, it could either be a 6 or a 9. And there are two people at each end of the number. So one's looking down and it's clearly a 6, and he's yelling out, 6. Then the other guy's on the other side of it, and he's looking down and it's clearly a 9, and he's yelling out, 9. And then underneath it says, just because you're right doesn't mean I'm wrong. You just haven't seen life from my side. And I like that. I think there's truth to it. However, it's the internet, so somebody had to come and ruin this nice little idea. And so there's a meme where it's that image, but they've marked out the just because you're right doesn't mean I'm wrong bit. It's literally a red line crossed through it. And the new text is put underneath saying something to the effect of, nope, someone either painted a 6 or a 9. It's one or the other, it's not both. So you need to back up, orient yourself, see if there are some other numbers perhaps to align with. Maybe ask someone who actually knows. But people having an uninformed opinion about something they don't actually understand and then proclaiming that opinion as equal to and as valid as actual facts is the problem that is ruining this world. No one wants to do actual research, they just want to be right. And I'm like, okay, you're missing the point of the original. Why can't we just let something be nice? Why do we have to internet it up and ruin it? When I first saw that, I was kind of upset. I was like, you know, the original point still stands. There are other places you can make your point. I don't understand why you have to come in and correct this image that doesn't really need to be corrected. I mean, because there are times when the reality and the truth of something actually depends on your experience and your perspective and where you're standing. And it doesn't make it less true than someone else's truth who's had different experiences and is in different standing. Science actually proved that this week. I don't know how many of you follow quantum physics. Like, I've got a quantum physics thing on my Google News so that I get stuff. But there was a huge thing in quantum news this week, in quantum physics this week. So you've all heard of Schrodinger's cat, probably, right? The idea that if there was a cat in a box, we wouldn't know, and there's poison in the box too, that the cat could conceivably eat. And so without opening the box and looking inside, we don't know if the cat is alive or dead. So in quantum physics, the idea is the cat is both alive and dead. Because either one is possible. And the truth doesn't lock in until we open the box and check it. Now, that's the underlying theory of quantum physics. So the other theory that's not as well known as Schrodinger's cat is that you have a photon. And now what way it's oriented isn't locked in until someone measures it. And then from then on, when it's measured, it's that way. And so until it's measured, though, it literally could be either or both. It's really hard to understand, but this is why our cell phones work, is these weird things. And somebody found a way to test where they have two people checking and measuring the photon, getting different results at the same time, and both being able to prove that they are correct. That it's oriented different ways at the same time. So reality splits on a molecular level. Both realities are true at the same time. It's mind-blowing, incredible stuff. Basically proving multiple dimension type implications that we can observe on a molecular level. So one person is saying 6, and he's right. And one person is saying 9, and they're right. Even though it should be impossible that both are right. Fascinating stuff. But here's the thing. As much as I feel like the correction of the 6-9 image is missing the point, the so-called correction also does make a legitimate point. There are some things that are just fact. That even if you think there's another way to look at it, and from where you're standing it looks like you're right, it doesn't mean that you are. I mean, uninformed opinions shouted with unearned certainty doesn't actually make what you're shouting true. And that's kind of what's happening in our scripture today. You see, Jesus has been going on about the coming eschatological end times and the judgment of God. And the people listening are like, oh, we get it. We get it because did you hear about those Galileans? Those Galileans that were massacred by Pilate recently, and so their blood was mixed with their sacrifice. Clearly, they had done some awful things. They were awful people and deserved the judgment that they got, that God used Pilate to kill them. We get it, Jesus. And Jesus is like, no, you don't get it. How did you come to that conclusion? That's not what I'm talking about at all. You're looking at it from the completely wrong side of things. Just because something awful happened to these people doesn't mean that they deserved it. You know what? Don't concern yourself with what sins you believe others must have been or are committing. Because if you continue with this judgmental attitude, you're going to suffer the same fate. And then Jesus tells probably I don't know if you can say it's the weirdest parable. There are some weird parables in the Gospels. I don't know if you could pick which is the weird. But if you were like ranking them, this would definitely be among the weirdest. It really almost on its surface seems like what Jesus just completely changed the subject here. This seems completely out of left field. This does not seem to fit with what he's been talking about all this time. Jesus tells a parable. There was a fig tree in a yard. And the owner came out to check it for fruit, and for the third year running, there was no fruit. So he tore it down. And with what he's been talking about at this point, you're like, okay, I see where it connects. Tear it down. But then someone else says, wait, how about we work with it? Try and give it some better situation. I'll pack it with manure around, and we'll pay better attention to it, we'll water it, and see if maybe then it bears fruit. So all of a sudden, in Jesus' talk about the eschatological end-time judging of God, Jesus introduces grace into the story. And it's grace that is completely unearned. It's grace completely out of nowhere. This tree has never borne fruit. There is no sign that it will ever bear fruit. There's no reason to believe that if we do any of this, the outcome is going to change. The tree doesn't deserve another chance. The owner of the field is right. It's taking up space that could be used elsewhere. It's wasting resources that could go elsewhere. There is no reason to spare this because there's no even hint that something could possibly change. The fig tree has done nothing to earn its reprieve from destruction. And that's kind of where we all are. That should be our concern. Bearing fruit, moving forward. Not worrying about supposed sins that others have committed. So when we tell others that they can't have leadership roles or can't fully participate in the life of the church because of our focus on their supposed sin, and I want to be really clear here. I just want to come out and state this unequivocally. Being LGBTQ is not a sin. It's not. Anyone who argues that it is are reading Scripture and understanding things wrong. Living your life as you were made to live it is not a sin. And when you are in a completely consensual relationship, loving relationship with another person, making their own consensual, loving decisions to be in that relationship or of whatever kind with you, that's not a sin. Others might view it as such due to their misreadings of Scripture that we don't have enough time to get into right now. That honestly would be probably a long sermon series to look at each of the Scriptures and why they're misunderstanding that. But I do want to make it completely clear. Living as you were created by God to live is not a sin. The sin in the situation is focusing on that supposed sin and denying full fellowship to other people because of that focus. That is the type of failure to love. That is the type of sin that results in the inability to bear fruit. That's what Jesus is trying to correct his listeners on here. You're focusing on the wrong thing. You're understanding my words wrong, and you're not focusing on love. You're focusing on others' judgment. When I'm talking about judgment, I'm not talking about anyone else. I'm not telling you to worry yourself about God's judgment on anyone else because it's going to happen the way it happens, and that's God. It has nothing to do with us. And here's the thing, there's also this unearned grace part that makes no sense. God forgives. So don't worry about that. Worry about producing fruit yourself and helping others produce fruit. Spread that manure. Through the love of neighbor, through the love of God, through love, we bear fruit. And God is giving us the completely unearned space and time to start bearing that fruit, to start helping others bear that fruit, to start loving. So as much as it really annoys me when I see that corrected version of the meme of the 6 verse 9, in some cases, and in the case of our scripture today, the so-called correction is right. There really is only one way to see this. And it isn't to scream that we're right about other sins and the just punishment that they will receive for them. Because by denying particular people fellowship, they claim, oh, well, by keeping them out of leadership positions or not allowing same-sex marriages in our sanctuaries, well, that really is showing them love. That's the argument. You know, we love the sinner, but we hate that sin. And so by not allowing them to live into that sin, we're actually loving them. That's the argument. Because allowing them to continue their sinful ways would be condemning them to their deserved punishment. See, that's where the logic goes. If I just love you and let you do that, God's going to smite you. Didn't you hear about the Galileans and their mingled blood? No. Jesus says, no. Living that way, worrying that way, is only going to earn you that punishment. Instead, start worrying about bearing fruit, about actually loving and accepting and including and welcoming everyone to the table. And be thankful that God has given us the grace and the time to get to the point where we're able to bear those fruits, where we're able to reorient ourselves and actually see what way that number's facing, to actually see the truth for what it really is. Love. Amen.